Welcome to the Liz Wheeler Show. My prediction for the 2024 presidential election tomorrow is as follows. If it is a close election, if the race is neck and neck between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and if we don't know the final tally of votes by tomorrow night, the close of election day, if we don't know the final tally of votes even by Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or next week, then here's what's going to happen. The Kamala Harris campaign, in a desperate attempt to steal the election, to push it past the finish line, will stage the following coup. They will force Joe Biden to resign as president of the United States, and Kamala Harris will have an inauguration in his place, even though she is the sitting vice president, so she'll be elevated to the position of president, and she will claim to be the first woman president of the United States, hoping that the enthusiasm that this sparks in our country will distract from the fact that she is trying to steal the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. Now, here's the real wild card prediction here. If this happens, Kamala Harris will not appoint Tim Walz to be her vice president, because in a scenario where a president dies, the vice president becomes president. If Joe Biden resigns and Kamala Harris becomes president, she would have the authority to appoint, just to choose who she wants to be for her vice president, but it won't be Tim Walz. Tim Walz has been nothing but a drag on her campaign. So here's my prediction of who Kamala Harris would bring with her to the inauguration stage. Are you ready for this? Jamie Raskin. Congressman Jamie Raskin is one of the strongest, most prevalent, most corrupt voices weaponizing the power of government against Donald Trump. He was, of course, behind the January 6th Selects Committee that tried to get Donald Trump over, quote unquote, inciting an insurrection. And this is exactly who Kamala Harris would bring with her, because the moment that she becomes president by hook or by crook, she will never stop until she has put Donald Trump in prison. And by the way, if Kamala Harris has not yet thought of Jamie Raskin, if she doesn't know who she'd appoint yet, it's because she hasn't asked Mark Elias who exactly she should bring with her to the White House. That is my prediction for what's going to happen this week if the election results are close. But perhaps the bigger question is tomorrow. What's going to happen tomorrow? Who's going to win this thing? What's the vote? What are the vote totals going to be? What's going to happen throughout the day tomorrow? A huge number of votes have already been cast, whether those are early votes or mail-in votes. Are we going to know results tomorrow? Because my prediction of what's going to happen if we don't know the outcome of the election would be moot if we actually know the outcome of the election tomorrow. Will there be cheating? And if so, how bad is that cheating going to be? Are we going to catch it in real time enough to stop it? Is there going to be political violence? And who ultimately is going to be president of the United States? We are going to break down all of this today. I'm going to show you the data that I'm using to analyze this race and what factors are playing into my prediction of who is going to be the next president. We're also going to talk to Lily Tang Williams. If you guys have not seen the video of Lily Tang Williams absolutely excoriating her opponent on the debate stage, Lily Tang Williams was born in communist China. She escaped to the United States. She's now running for Congress in the state of New Hampshire. She's running against Jake Sullivan's wife, national security advisor to Joe Biden, a neocon if there ever was one. And Lily Tang Williams dropped the truth bomb on Maggie Goodlander, Jake Sullivan's wife. And we have Lily Tang Williams on the show with us a little bit later today. So make sure you stick around for that. But let me tell you what I'm thinking about tomorrow, the data that I'm analyzing and how that data factors into what I'm looking for and what I predict will happen tomorrow. Let's start with the most accurate pollster from 2020 in predicting who would win that election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden was Atlas Intel. Atlas Intel accurately predicted the outcome of that election. So naturally, I'm interested in what they are predicting for this election. Atlas Intel's final prediction for the election tomorrow is that Trump will be victorious. He will have 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226. That's a significant victory. And while I typically discount polls, this particular one was accurate in 2020, so that gives him a little credibility in my eyes. When it comes to the swing states, Atlas Intel has North Carolina, has Trump winning North Carolina by 3.5, has Trump winning Georgia by 2.5, Trump winning Arizona by 6.5, Trump winning Nevada by 5.5, Wisconsin by just 1 point, Michigan by 1.5, and Pennsylvania by 1.8. Obviously, I hope that he's correct. I hope this is the outcome of the election. But at the same time, we have another poll, another electoral college prediction from CNN that predicts almost exactly the opposite. CNN projects Trump winning only 241 electoral votes, with Kamala Harris securing 278. Isn't it interesting how you can look at the same pool of voters, Americans, use the same data and produce polls that show the exact opposite outcome? CNN predicts that Kamala will win Wisconsin by 6, that Kamala will win Michigan by 5, that Kamala will win Arizona and North Carolina by 1 each, that Pennsylvania will be a tie, and that Trump will win Georgia and Nevada by 1. So we have 2 polls on opposing sides, and perhaps Atlas Intel, you could argue, isn't ideologically to the right the way that CNN is ideologically to the left, but they cancel each other out in my mind. So then we have a poll out of Iowa. You probably saw this over the weekend. Is there a scenario in which Kamala Harris wins Iowa, a traditionally red state, by 3 points? According to pollster Ann Selzer, the answer is yes. That's what her poll predicts. I saw this. I knew it was fake before I even read the crosstabs. And let me tell you exactly why this poll is fake. It's what's called a suppression poll. It's supposed to put such a damper on our enthusiasm, thinking, were we so off in thinking that President Trump has this groundswell of support that he could actually lose a traditionally red state by 3 points? A pollster surveyed people and said so. I guess I just won't go out and vote. That is what that poll is intended to do. Do not fall for that, my friends, because it's fake news. This poll is incredibly biased, and I'm going to show you exactly why. First of all, what I'm going to show you on the screen right now is a list. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet, but don't be intimidated by it. I'm going to explain to you exactly what it is and why it's important. This is a list of all of the counties in the state of Iowa. You can see on the left-hand portion the number of Democrats swinging, if it's a Democrat swinging county or Republican swinging county, and if so, by how many points in 2020, compared to which county swings Democrat and by how much, which county swings Republican and by how much in 2024. And you will see on this screen that every single county in the state of Iowa is more Republican today than they were in 2020. So how exactly could you argue that a poll that shows that Kamala is going to win the state of Iowa by 3 is a credible poll if it contradicts county by county evidence that the state of Iowa is actually more Republican than it was in 2020 when Donald Trump won that state handily? Well, that's just the first piece of evidence that contradicts this poll. The second piece of evidence, this comes from my friend Ryan Gerdusky. He went back and compared the exit polls in 2020 to the crosstabs of Ann Seltzer's polls now in 2024, and he found some really weird contradictions here. So when you're polling a specific state, if it's a red state, then yes, you do sample more Republicans than Democrats. If you are polling an urban center, you might poll more young people than seniors. You construct your poll in a way that is illustrative of the demographic of people that you want to know how they're going to vote. Otherwise, it's going to be an inaccurate poll. But what Ann Seltzer did is she overpolled Democrats in crazy proportions in almost every single example. Here's what I'm talking about. In 2020, the exit polls shows that overall, Republicans were up +8. Well, Ann Seltzer found that she polled Democrats +3. So why? What evidence do you have that there's going to be an 11-point switch like that? Senior women in 2020 voted Democrat +6, but Ann Seltzer pulled them at Democrat +35. That's a significant difference that we don't have evidence to support. The same with senior men. Senior men voted +32 Republican in 2020, and Ann Seltzer has them at only +2 Republican. So a 30-point switch for senior men. If your red flags are pinging like crazy right now, then you are correct. The same with in the suburbs. In the suburbs in 2020, suburban voters voted +3 Republican, and Ann Seltzer has them voting +23 Democrat. And again, with college educated, Democrat +7 in 2020, Democrat +30. So this is not polling that is based on what has actually happened in Iowa. This is polling based on, I don't know what. She was actually asked about this specific contradiction between the 2020 exit polls and her polls crosstabs. She was asked about Ryan's tweet by Mark Halperin, and this is how she answered it. Take a look at this.
Right. Okay. So Noah, are you able to put up that tweet? Maybe it's up and I can't see it because
It's up.
It's up. All right. Ann, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Could you just go through and say what you think about those criticisms?
Well, I'm trying. This is in a format that's a little difficult for me to see. What does this D represent and the R represent?
So they're saying that, and again, he says read through the Seltzer crosstabs.
Yeah.
So right,
The,
they're saying that they know that this poll shows, and again, it's they say your sample is got it's more 3% more Democrats than Republican, whereas the electorate last time was eight
oh, I
percent more
see.
Republican. It says that you have Indies voting Democrat +4, whereas last time they
Yeah.
voted or +7 +4. So
Yeah.
they're saying if you compare what you have with what happened in 20, according to the exit polls, it's way too big a change across all these groups in a uniform way towards pro Harris as opposed to Trump.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I'm seeing this, and so it's sort of against my nature to think I understand everything that this is saying, and I haven't cross-checked these numbers to know how that actually pans
Yeah.
out. But I'm going to say that it is clear that senior women are an advantage to Kamala Harris in our poll. Kamala Harris wins by more than 2 to 1, actually, maybe even more than that among senior women. It's a big, big spread. So I don't know. I mean, the truth of it.
I don't know. I don't know anything about my own poll. How can you be a pollster and not at first glance recognize that R means Republican and D means Democrat? She has no idea what she's talking about. Let's go back to 2016 for a second. In 2016, Trump won in Iowa by 9.4 points. In 2020, Trump won Iowa by 8.2 points. Now, in 2024, there's another poll, not Ann Selzer's poll, an Emerson poll shows Trump up by 9 points in Iowa. That is in line with what has happened historically. That means that Ann Selzer's poll is complete garbage. I don't know why. I don't know if it's intentionally garbage, if she's just terrible at her job, but I can tell you this poll has been weaponized by the left to try to gaslight us. They want to try to get inside our heads. They want us to worry, are we missing something? Are we about to lose red states to Kamala Harris? Do people really support Kamala more than we think? Is Trump not as popular as his rallies suggest? They want us. It's a suppression poll. It's meant to discourage you, to force you to stay home. Do not do it. If you have not cast your ballot, if you have not early voted, if you have not sent in a mail-in ballot, go to the polls tomorrow. Prove these people wrong. Stop Kamala Harris from being president of the United States. Guys, this is it. We are on the verge of the biggest presidential election in our lifetime, regardless of whether you're Gen Z, millennial, Gen X, or a boomer. This is it. Go subscribe to blazetv.com because if Kamala wins, guess what we're going to face? We are going to face algorithmic suffocation. We know big government colludes with big tech. We are going to face outright censorship. We are going to be targeted by the deep state. And you guys, it's important that you and I are able to share the truth with each other because when the mainstream media is in control, they are but propagandists to the Democrat politicians who gaslight us, lie to us, and want to control us. Go to blazeelection.com/Liz. We have our biggest discount ever. You get $47 off because we think this election is the most important of our lifetime. Go to blazeelection.com/Liz. Tomorrow for the election, we are going to be covering everything. We're going to have correspondents on the ground, some of the biggest names in conservative media, Glenn Beck, Megyn Kelly, Steve Deace, Ali Stuckey, me, Sarah Gonzalez. We're all going to be here breaking down real-time results as they come in. It will be raw. It will be unfiltered. We're not going to manipulate you like the mainstream media and like Kamala's propagandists, but it is really important. If you're not a subscriber, go to blazeelection.com/Liz. Subscribe. We don't know what's going to happen with our free speech in the next days, the next weeks, the next months, or the next years, because we don't yet know who's going to win the election. And the outcome of the election is crucial to the protection of our free speech and freedom of the press. Go to blazeelection.com/Liz now. Take advantage of the $47 off, our biggest discount ever. That's blazeelection.com/Liz. Those are the three polls that have made news this weekend. This is, like I said before, we're going through the information that I'm using to analyze what's going to happen tomorrow and what prediction I'm about to share with you about what I think the outcome of this election is going to be. There was another, I will call it a psyop. I think it's pretty safe for us to assume that Almost any information that the mainstream media is happy about or portraying as news is intended to mess with you psychologically before the election. So their poly market, you guys have probably heard of poly market. It's a betting market, but it bets on politicians versus betting on like sports or something else. And the betting markets, poly markets specifically, swung to Kamala in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania over the weekend. And instantly, this was splashed all over social media and all over the news. Something big in the psyche of the American people has shifted towards Kamala. Trump is losing his advantage, we were told. But I looked into this because all you have to do is read one sentence past the headline to find the truth oftentimes. And if you look on Polymarket, which I did, and I'm going to show you on the screen right now, you will see that there were two exceptionally large bets that were made for Kamala. Most of these other bets were, in the pocket change range, $50, $100, but two bets were made, $25,000, $26,000. Well, what happens when two exorbitant bets are made? It has an immediate impact of shifting those odds towards Kamala, and then the market corrected itself because it was just a blip in the market, essentially. And it shifted back to Trump. And the reason that the left and the mainstream media don't want you to know about that is because, again, this is just a tactic of voter suppression. The left knows that specifically young men have not cast their ballots in early voting yet, and they want to put such a damper on people's enthusiasm that people just don't take the time out of their day to go vote. Because, let's be real, sometimes it's inconvenient to go vote on election day. You're busy, you have a job, you have a family, you have kids to take care of, you have other things that you're doing. You don't really want to go and stand in a line somewhere. Sometimes these lines are up to a couple of hours long. It's a pain. You don't want to have to find parking. It's not fun to take hours out of your day to go vote. But let me tell you, we got to do it because they are trying to prevent you from casting your ballot. Let me ask you a question. Do you think our country is going in the right direction? The majority of voters do not think that our country is going in the right direction. And if you feel this way, well, you have good reason to feel this way. Not only are our politics unstable, the state of the world is also growing more unstable as our politics here in the United States grows more unstable. And Americans from all walks of life, it's prudent to prepare for whatever is to come because we know something is going to happen shortly. This preparation starts with having an emergency food supply. Storing food in your home, it's the right thing to do. It's the secure thing to do. It's the prudent thing to do because we are, like it or not, living in really crazy times, which explains why so many people are preparing. My husband and I are preparing. When Kamala Harris a month or two ago, maybe it was 6 weeks ago, said that if she becomes president, she's going to impose price controls on the food supply chain, I turned to my husband and said, this is going to cause food shortages immediately, like runs on the grocery store the day after it happens. Are we prepared? And he said, yes, we have 2 pallets of My Patriot supply in our basement waiting for that day when we might need it. I highly recommend that you join us. You can get ready with a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. It's good food. It's creamy stroganoff, honey wheat bread, mushroom rice. It's 2,000 calories a day, which, as you know, you don't want to starve here. And it lasts up to 25 years. We don't know if we'll need it tomorrow, next week, next year, or not for a decade, but it lasts for 25 years. So whenever the day comes when you need it, it will be there ready for you. Go to preparewithliz.com right now. You can order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Go to preparewithliz.com. That's preparewithliz.com. There was a spate of celebrity endorsements this weekend as well. It's funny to see, by the way, what tactic the left was using. Last week it was racism, you're all Nazis, and this week it's abortion. These, my friends, are tactics of desperation. This is not making a case for Kamala Harris. This is trying to fearmonger you, to trick you and manipulate you into voting for Kamala. So celebrity endorsements that came in over the weekend: Cardi B, J-Lo, LeBron James, Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon. And the common thread in most, if not all of these celebrity endorsements was the following line: do it for your daughter. I'm voting, Reese Witherspoon said, for my daughter and her reproductive freedom. But let me just tell you, if you are voting, quote unquote, for my daughter and, quote, for reproductive freedom, but what you actually mean is you're voting for abortion without restriction, then what you're actually saying is that you're totally fine with men, multiple men, using your daughter as an object for promiscuous sex, impregnating her without any intention of commitment or love, and then brutally killing your sweet grandbaby in your daughter's womb so that your daughter can be used again by more men. Stop that. It's gross. Stop it for your daughter. Stop it. So then, of course, we have early voting. This is a scenario in our country that we have never seen before. The number of early votes cast in our country is unprecedented. And I say this because I think this is a good thing. And I'm gonna do what Trump does, and I'm gonna engage in the weave for a second. It is a good thing that the number of early votes is so large, not because early voting in and of itself is a good thing. I don't like early voting. I cast an early vote. That's how I voted. I did early voting. I don't like it because I don't like election season. I like election day. But for better or for worse, probably for worse, we have election season. We don't just have election day. And if we compete as if we only have election day, then we're going to lose because of election season. So the fact that Republicans have finally come to terms with, okay, if we want to beat Democrats and maybe change it back to election day, we have to first win during election season. That is what we're seeing happen right now. Republicans are finally engaging in early voting. And the early vote numbers are skewing Republican, at least enthusiasm-wise. And what I mean by that is in the state of Pennsylvania, Democrats have cast more early votes than Republicans have. Democrats have cast 55.7% of early votes. Republicans have cast 32%, 32.8% to be precise, and independents have cast 11.5%. Now, again, that's a significant number more Democrat early votes than Republican early votes. But if you compare this to the numbers from 2022, 2 years ago, it's significant. And it's even more significant if you go back to 2020. So first, let's start in 2022. Republicans in 2024, this year, have cast 323,000 more early votes than they did in 2022. Democrats have only cast 140,000 more votes in 2024 compared to 2022. That's a good sign for Republicans, but what's really a good sign for Republicans is looking at the early voting data from Pennsylvania in 2020. Republicans in 2020 cast 30,000 fewer early votes in 2020 compared to 2024, but Democrats cast 721,000 fewer votes in 2024 compared to 2020. What does that tell you? One of my pet peeves when I'm traveling a lot, which I do for work, I travel all the time, is going through TSA because TSA is incompetent. They are, in my opinion, a perfect illustration of the bureaucracy of the federal government. They violate your personal space. They are incompetent at what they do. They cost a lot of money and they waste your time. So just blech is how I feel about TSA. In fact, yesterday I was traveling with my 7-month-old and she had a little Duplo block in her hand. And the TSA agent goes, "Do you mind if I take that and check it?" And I was like, "It's a block. She's sucking on it. She's a 7-month-old baby." And he's like, "Well, could you turn it over so I could look inside?" And I'm like, do you get a lot of babies that are carrying bomb-making materials through the checkpoint here? They never think that joke is funny, but the point of this story, besides an excoriating criticism of the TSA, again, my pet peeve, is this is what happens to you if you go online without using a secure VPN server. Every bit of your personal information, from your email to your searches to everything that you do, if you are connected to the internet, is vulnerable to being snooped upon. It's the equivalent to having your belongings pawed through by the CIA or by the CIA. Well, there's a Freudian slip for you, by the TSA. If you go online without using ExpressVPN, then all of your information can be pawed through. Hackers can get your personal information. They can sell it. You can be spied upon. It's disgusting and it's creepy. And I highly encourage you to do what I do and use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making it very difficult for third parties to hack your online activity. And by the way, ExpressVPN is very easy to use. You don't have to be technologically savvy. You just fire up the app. You click one button to get protected. You can use it on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop. You can use it on the go. I especially like to use it in airports because there are a lot of people on those open internet connections in airports. We use ExpressVPN for everything show-related, whether it's show prep, email, communicating with sources, anything, researching things online that we want to be private, we use ExpressVPN. So protect your privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/Liz. That's EXPRESSVPN.com/Liz expressvpn.com/Liz, and you can get an extra 3 months free if you visit expressvpn.com/Liz. Enthusiasm, my friends. Turn out the vote. We said last week on the show, there aren't too many Kamala Harris voters who are going to change their minds and vote for Trump, nor are there too many Trump voters who are going to change their minds and vote for Kamala Harris the week prior to the election. What wins elections in the final week is turn out the vote, get out the vote. Will people actually show up and cast their ballot? And the answer to that in Pennsylvania is Republicans via early voting are turning out with more enthusiasm than Democrats are. And that is a good sign. Overall, there's been 72 million early votes cast, and these early votes have skewed women, meaning skewed towards women voters. In fact, of the total early vote count, 53% of early votes have been women, while only 44% have been men. And this brings us, all of this data brings us to what my prediction is going to be for tomorrow. There are 4 unknown factors that are going to impact what happens, the outcome of the election tomorrow. The first factor is, are Republican women going to cast their ballots for Donald Trump? There's been a concerted effort by the media for the last decade to demonize Donald Trump in the eyes of women specifically. It's been an effective effort on the left when it comes to indoctrinating liberal women against Donald Trump. But will Republican women cast their vote for Donald Trump? That's unknown number 1. Unknown number 2 is whether young men will turn out and vote on election day, because we see this early vote skewing so heavily female. Well, are these men just not going to vote at all, or are they waiting to vote until election day? Young men specifically, they didn't turn out in good numbers in 2022. We need them to turn out in good numbers in 2024 if we want to win. That's unknown number 2. Unknown number 3 is Christians. Specifically Christians who are maybe single issue pro-life voters. Will they stay home like they threatened to a couple months ago because Donald Trump isn't quite as pro-life as we are? Or will they turn out and vote and cast their ballot knowing that Donald Trump was the most pro-life president of our lifetime? That's unknown number 3. And then unknown number 4 is, we know that there's going to be cheating by the Democrats. We don't yet know how bad that cheating is going to be. Will we catch it in real time? Will they get away with it? Will it impact the outcome of the election? Those are the 4 unknowns. And in preparation for this unknowability, I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody does. Anybody who claims to be certain of the outcome of the election is probably a cheater who's trying to rig it. Like Jamie Raskin, for example, said even if Trump, this is Congressman Jamie Raskin, who I think Kamala would pick as her vice president if Biden resigns and Kamala has her inauguration, if the election is close and we don't know results in the next few days. Jamie Raskin said even if Donald Trump wins the Electoral College vote, he and some fellow members of Congress are going to refuse to certify it because of the insurrection clause. They're going to unilaterally declare Donald Trump to be an insurrectionist and therefore ineligible for the presidency of the United States. So prediction number 1 here. We're finally getting to the good stuff. Prediction number 1 is 2025 is going to be ugly. What we saw in the summer of 2020, the Black Lives Matter riots, the Antifa taking over downtown areas of cities across the country, that's what we're going to see again, but worse. 2025 is going to be violent, divisive, and there are going to be riots in the street. Innocent people are going to be hurt. And I say this not because I want this to happen. I do not want this to happen. I don't think any Republican, not a single conservative, not even one Trump supporter should engage in violence, but the left is going to. And the left is going to do their best to try to incite violence from Trump supporters. Do not fall for that. But when it comes to tomorrow, what should happen? Donald Trump should win this election handily if the election is free and fair. All of the data, all of the enthusiasm, all of the support points in that direction. Will that be enough to overcome the cheating that the Democrats are almost certainly going to engage in? I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that the American people, you and I, are watching with eagle eye on election integrity around the country, on the integrity of our mail-in votes, our signature verifications, on the counting process, on abnormalities when it comes to early vote lines being closed or the password for voting machines being leaked. We are watching. And the fact that we are watching and we are identifying and we are speaking out against violations of election integrity make it harder for the Democrats to get away with cheating. So as you go about your day tomorrow, whether you are at work and you are on social media, whether you are a poll watcher, whether you are an election worker, whether you are standing in a line and you simply observe something, if you see something strange, say something, take a picture of it, take a video of it, document it so that we can report it. The more that these things are reported, the better we can stop them. It's only when we turn our eyes, when we bury our heads in the sand, that the Democrats can get away with this kind of cheating. If we don't let them get away with it, then they can't get away with it. The GOP has done some things to fortify against cheating. They have not done enough. Therefore, it is incumbent on you and I to make sure that we thoroughly document, that we watch closely. In all the time that we have been alive, the US dollar has always been the primary currency. I remember taking a shoebox when I was a child and wrapping it in wrapping paper, like shiny, bedazzled wrapping paper, and cutting a hole in the top of the shoebox. And every time I earned a dollar bill, I would put it in that shoebox to save up for what I wanted to purchase. I mean, I did this all the way until high school. I think my first car I purchased with cash that I'd put in this gift-wrapped shoebox. And the same goes for today. You get your wallet out of your pocket, those dollar bills, you know the feel of them, you know the smell of them. You've been able to count on that money to support your family. But what if that's not true anymore? What if inflation has devalued our money to the point that it just isn't worth what it used to be? Our politics, as you know, is getting increasingly unstable. No sign of this outrageous spending going away. Plus, the government's looking to take control of us by using our money to control us. They want to implement this new digital dollar. My friends, it has never been more important than for you to take control over your own wealth. Don't let your life savings, your retirement accounts, any of your money become a casualty of failing banks or currency wars or controlling politicians. Now is the time to call the only precious metal dealer that I trust, American Hartford Gold. They'll show you how to protect your savings and your retirement accounts by diversifying your wealth portfolio with physical gold and silver. My husband and I have done this ourselves because we want to be financially secure for our future. And American Hartford Gold, by the way, is a great company. They specifically choose to support content like this that is committed to bringing you the truth. So tell them that I sent you, and they will give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. You can call them. You can click the link in the description of this episode, or you can call the phone number. It's 866-996-5172. That's 866-996-5172. Or you can send a text message with my name, Liz, to 998899. The phone number to call is 866-996-5172, or you can text Liz to 998899. I don't think that we're going to know the results tomorrow night. And on this, I differ from my producer, Tim, who, by the way, his prediction is slightly different than mine. And I give it a ton of credibility because he was correct in 2016. He predicted that Donald Trump would win, and Donald Trump won. And in 2020, Tim predicted that Donald Trump would lose, and Donald Trump lost. I can't help myself, Tim. I have to put it in quotation marks. Tim predicts that Donald Trump is going to win in 2024, and he predicts that it will be an early night, that we will know the results tomorrow, and I hope he's correct. But if we don't, then we are going to face something unprecedented in this country. We are going to face a deep state apparatus that actually tries to install a president instead of allowing we, the people, to democratically cast our ballots and elect the person that we want to represent us in self-government. We are going to see Joe Biden resign and step down from the presidency. And we are going to see an inauguration, the like of which we have never seen, for Kamala Harris long before the end of January. We're going to see that by the end of this year if we do not have election results by the end of this week. There might be some undecided voters out there. I don't believe that people don't know whether they like Donald Trump better or whether they like Kamala Harris better. The undecided voter that's out there that's listening to this show today is undecided about whether to vote, whether to cast his or her ballot. And what I would say to you today is it sounds trite when we say that no election has been more important than this election. And that's true, that no election is more important than the current election. Every single election determines the trajectory of a country. So every election is important, but we have allowed our country to come to the point where we're almost past the point of no return. There won't be course correction. It won't be, well, Democrats spend a little more, Republicans cut back on spending. Democrats are a little with the censorship. Republicans will course correct. We are long past the sort of ping pong back and forth in the center that Democrats and Republicans have lived in for the last 30 years. We are in a situation where Kamala Harris has brought us to the brink of World War III. Kamala Harris started the war with Ukraine by inviting NATO into Ukraine and Ukraine into NATO. 2 days after she said that, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. And he's wrong to invade Ukraine. He is a tyrant. But that war would never have happened had Donald Trump been president and had Kamala Harris not broken a promise that the United States and NATO had made to Vladimir Putin to not bring NATO into Ukraine. Kamala Harris started that war, and since then, the Kamala Harris-Joe Biden administration has given over $175 billion. I would say our taxpayer money, but they're printing the money to do it, to the war in Ukraine. They've written a blank check for another forever war. And the result of that has been our inflation here at home has skyrocketed. We are now paying 46% more for gasoline, 22% more for groceries, 30% more for electricity. If you want to buy a house in the United States today, just a median priced house, an average house for your family, because of interest rates and skyrocketing inflation, you are now paying twice as much to buy a house than you were paying under Donald Trump 4 years ago. Twice as much. And yet Kamala Harris gaslights you and says the economy is fine. You're doing well. She says wages have increased. Well, wages have not increased as fast as inflation has increased. And so actually your money is worth less. You are making less effectively than you were before Kamala Harris. And meanwhile, the products that you buy are more expensive. That doesn't even take into account the crisis at our border. Our nation is a nation of immigrants. No one is denying that we are a melting pot. This is what has made our country great. But what's happening at the southern border is cartels, drug cartels, human traffickers, international gangs, and just plain old criminals are coming into our nation because and it's not we, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have deliberately chosen not to secure our border. There are 650,000 aliens in our nation who have criminal histories. They either have been convicted of a crime or charged with a crime, roaming free in our neighborhoods because Kamala Harris implemented catch and release. Donald Trump had stopped that. The catch and release being, if you cross the border and you have a child with you, you're not deported. You're set free into the United States and just given a court date. Well, what do the coyotes and the traffickers do when they are given that kind of mandate? They create what's called recycling rings of children who are not biologically related to adults, but are simply paired with an illegal alien to cross the border so that that illegal alien can be set free in the country. That illegal alien is given a court date, which they most often don't show up to, and those children are lost. Right now, there are 325,000 children that the United States who've crossed the border that the United States government has lost track of because of a deliberate policy from Kamala Harris. Millions are crossing the border illegally, including 150 terrorists who have just, where are they? Are they hiding out? Are they waiting? Are they plotting an attack? When are they actually going to unleash their hatred of us, on us, in our country? Maybe at our schools or our churches, our neighborhoods, our festivals, our parades. We don't know because Kamala Harris, those are just the ones, by the way, that we know got away. They're not the actual gotaways that we don't have the numbers to substantiate. We don't have the numbers to illustrate how many of these people are in our country. The amount of fentanyl in our country, 70,000 of our countrymen die from fentanyl overdose every year. And the amount of fentanyl that has been captured crossing the border just from May of 2022 or 2023 to May of 2024 is enough fentanyl to kill every single American 14 times over. And that's only the amount that's been captured. That's not the amount that's gotten away. The choice of who to vote for in this election is simple. It's not about the personalities of these candidates. It's not hypothetical. We know exactly what each of them will be. Donald Trump's been president. Kamala Harris is vice president. We know what we're getting with each of them. Kamala Harris makes our country more dangerous. She makes our country more expensive. She makes life more difficult, and she violates our freedom. Donald Trump made our lives better as president, and there's every evidence to show that he would do that again. Nobody in their right mind should vote for Kamala Harris. Go out, cast your vote for Donald Trump. Make America great again. RFK Jr. endorsed her after seeing one video go viral on X. On the spot, she was so based, so precise. She took on the neocon uniparty in Washington, D.C., the deep state, so effectively that RFK on the spot said, "I support you and thanks for what you do." She joins me today. It is Lily Tang Williams. She is a candidate for the United States Congress out of New Hampshire. And she's running in this race. She's running against a woman named Maggie Goodlander. Some of you might be familiar with that name. Some of you might not, because Maggie Goodlander does not share the last name of her husband. Her husband is Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor. Lily, thank you for joining us on the show, and your video was outstanding.
Thank you for having me. I've been following you for a while. I'm just so happy I'm on your show now.
Oh, I appreciate that. I want you to tell us your story, because you have an incredible perspective on what's happening in American politics because you survived the communist revolution in China. Can you tell us what your experience was with that and how you escaped?
Well, I mean, like Mao's Cultural Revolution was from 1966 to 76. So I was 2 years old to 12 years old. And, I just, my childhood memory was poverty, hunger, and political, social chaos. And we struggled economically and sometimes mentally because I was so worried about our neighborhood. You just did not feel safe. And our doors were not even locked very well. What if a criminal just come in? And of course, our party boss, Communist Party Bloc Committee, and our teachers and principals, they all can come to visit us. So, even without any appointment, it's just like you really don't feel, you live in a very safe environment. But everything was political. Everything was about the class struggle. Mao used the Cultural Revolution to gain his supreme leader status. So he divided people to like a traditional Marxist do. It's oppressor versus oppressed, but he goes even further. He put 5 black classes under oppressor and 5 red classes under oppressed. So guess I was fortunate. I was red class. Otherwise, I could not probably even go to college and join his organization like a Young Pioneer, Red Guards, but it was nobody was happy, and food control and food rationing and no private industry, no private property ownership. Everything was politics, and I did not know the truth. I was totally brainwashed, little child. I was hungry, I was poor, but I was saying Kumbaya, long live my mom every day. Until he died when I was 12. That's when I started to ask questions. Somebody lied to me. he was not God. He was a human being. He died.
And that woke you up to the fact that what you had suffered, this poverty or this, I mean, to call it Big Brother, the way you describe it seems even like an understatement, just this constant control by politicians. You woke up to that because you realized, well, it doesn't have to be this way.
I start to ask a question inside of my head. I learned in an oppressive collective society to ask a wrong question, you can get yourself into trouble. Because I did get into trouble when I was 7 years old, just bragging about I would be the first one join Young Pioneer, and then my girlfriend turned me to teacher, and my principal's office, I got criticized to say I was not, humble enough. I was full of myself and too confident. As a child, an age of 7, I did not even join the Young Pioneer to wear that red scarf. And until I proved myself, I could confirm and keep my head down. So I learned not to even ask that question publicly. But I was totally lost child. Because when you believe a religion called communism for so long, of course, that was like evil, not a real religion. It was, evil and communism. Then all of a sudden you lost all. Mao died, and I did not know what to believe anymore. So I had to search for truth. And when university reopened, I was determined, even though my parents were very poor and illiterate, I studied very hard based on my own memory, intelligence, and work ethics to go to best university possible. At the age of 17, I went to 4 years college called the Fudan University Law School to search for truth. And that's what happened in law school those 4 years. I met an American exchange student who told me about the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. My light bulbs came on about individual rights and liberty. This is a great country. If someday I had to leave and escape China, this is the country I wanted to come. So I did. I come here in 1988.
Wow, so it wasn't just studying, it wasn't just asking questions. There was an American exchange student who told you about the founding of America, and that's what opened your eyes to, okay, now I see why communism doesn't work, even though previously you had felt it. Then you had a concrete reason, to see why the philosophy was bad, and you turned to the United States. So what was that process like when you decided that you wanted to leave China and you wanted to come to the United States?
The only way I could legally leave without any connections, any means, is to apply to be accepted by American graduate school and find an American sponsor who will pay for everything. And so I will not become a public burden. And I still had to pass TOEFL exam to be accepted as foreign student. The worst part is that I had to get my Communist Party committee chairman's permission in my law school to leave, to quit my job. People don't understand when you live in a total tyrannical regime, you don't own yourself. They own you. You have to get permission to quit your job, to leave your job, to go apply for private passport. And it took me 7 trips to get my passport, and 3 trips to get my U.S. consulate visa. And my boss at the beginning, just did not have a good relationship with me because of my light bulb turned on. I could not no longer support CCP dictatorship in law school as a faculty member. So he could sense that I was not really supporting the party anymore. So in order to get his permission for me to quit my job, apply for passport, I had to change my tactics, my strategies to butter him up, to kiss the ring in order to leave. And he made me to sign a piece of paper called agreement to promise go back to China after my graduate degree. Otherwise, I will be kicked out of the party. I did not care about that. We all had to join the party in order to work for law school, because law was supposed to be the tool for the party to govern the masses, not for equal liberty and justice. That's alien concept, individual rights and liberty. And the second one is that if I did not go back on time, and they were going to send my personnel file to my hometown in Sichuan province, so I will never even be able to go back to Shanghai. That personnel file, household registration are the 2 systems that CCP used to track its citizens. So you were born, your mom, dad had to register you as child in the local police station, and they use that, so-called almost like a national ID or local household registration. You cannot travel freely, and you use that, get your food rationing, get the local benefits. And once I become like a student in Shanghai, that I actually starting at 7 years old, I had a student file. It's a secret file. Parents are not allowed to see it. I was not allowed to see it, and shared by all government and your future employers, except yourself and your family. So that's why I say there's some similarities what's happening in today's Western countries in our country. That's why I'm terrified to say, why are they doing that here? Because I saw that in China already. So I had to sign that agreement in order to really feel like escape China, but I had to basically promise and sign the agreement in order to leave.
So what you asked in school as a 7-year-old was put in a secret file that you weren't allowed to look at, that your parents weren't allowed to look at, but that file was sent not just to the teachers and the principal at the school, but to the government, and it followed you all the way to law school, to a job, and to potentially being either able or banned from traveling back to your hometown after even getting into the United States. That's wild.
It is wild. That's why when I talked to this young man, he is a self-claimed communist. He had no idea what it's like to really live under a communist regime, a party. He was shocked. Oh, you cannot even vote? I said, of course, when they take over, you can never vote again. And I said, I never voted. I live in China for 24 years. And 1.4 billion Chinese people cannot vote. They don't have democracy. They don't have a free speech. They don't have freedom to travel. And they are trapped. This household registration personnel file follow you from birth to death. That's why Chinese people are passive. If they don't know the truth, they cannot rise up against their own oppressive government, because one person becomes anti-government, get a bad social credit system, and you cannot travel, you cannot get good jobs, you cannot get loans, but also you put your entire family at risk. And I might already put some of my family members at risk. I don't tell them what I'm doing here. They don't know I'm running for office. I'm on their blacklist, on CCP blacklist. I was threatened to say, hey, shut up in the United States, and you're bad mouth your motherland. I said, I'm an American citizen. I say whatever I want. I tell the truth. So I have not been able to see my family for 9 years. And I don't know what's going to happen if they found out I actually won and become a congresswoman. Maybe I have more protection. Maybe I finally can go to China, see my families. I miss them. And the Chinese people are very, very, passive and very nice people. They are the biggest victims of their government, but they have a firewall building around them. They cannot access to truth. That's why I've been saying, if I get elected into Congress, I want to advocate for U.S. government to empower all the people living in oppressive regimes by providing funding for some kind of app or technology support so they can access the truth. Because if they access the truth, they might rise up against their own tyrants. And then we don't have to fight endless wars, because we will just empower those people and live under tyranny.
And talk to me about that, because that was the video clip of you that went viral, was you talking to Maggie Goodlander, who is Jake Sullivan's wife. Jake Sullivan is the Biden National Security Advisor. And I think we could call him a neocon. It's kind of, there are Democrats and Republicans who are supporters, these warmongers, supporters of forever wars. I think neocon best describes them. But talk to me about that, given your experience in communist China. Because I think for a lot of people voting in this election, a lot of people who haven't voted yet, the idea of communism, while they're going to sit here and they're going to listen spellbound to your story because it's so out of the ordinary, it's so out of the consciousness of so many of us, they have a hard time imagining what you described happening here. But what's real to them is the possibility that these uniparty, deep state or warmongers are going to send them to war, and that they could potentially die over a border dispute in Ukraine.
So besides the inflation and border security are top two issues, I've been talking about, censorship, deny people the opportunity to know the truth. If you are dissident voices in America today, you can get censored. And so many people privately talk to me. They're afraid to speak up. Even in New Hampshire, they can lose their job, lose their careers. And their parents, finally, some parents start to speak up against what's going on in schools. But also some people to tell me quietly, they do worry about our crazy foreign policy, endless wars. They're worried about the potential World War III. Think about if you're a grandma, you want your kids and grandkids live in peace, have some freedom, have a good life. And now you have to worry about this, they might go to fight in foreign wars, and they just ended this under Biden administration, where Maggie is a part of it. And I always advocate, if we have right foreign policies, we have right approaches to help people all over the world, and by actually empower them in their own country. We don't have to even get them to come to our country illegally through open borders, but if we empower them to actually try to live, have some freedom, have some economical opportunities, and also how terrible the war is, because I can tell you, Chinese people don't want to have a war. They're already suffering under their harsh economical, conditions right now. And, even the retired people have to go get a job because their benefits are cut, and young people called the lay flat movement. They don't have drive to work hard, get into rat race, and they just want to stay home, do nothing, because they have no optimism about oppressive regime. The COVID shutdown in China in the past few years was absolutely horrible. I had friends in Shanghai were locked up in their Shanghai apartment for 6 weeks. They were having mental breakdown. And I share those videos where people get dragged out of their homes to go to quarantine camps. And they had no choice. And it's just so sad to see the similar things happening in Western countries, in our countries. And same time, they want to print money, borrow money, and to get into the wars and talk, they talk. That's why I feel like this country, American people, the silent majority, need to rise up to really to say, hey, we are in control of our country. We are the owners of this country. You don't tell us what to do. You don't push down those policies on us. And I will be that true voice because I know the similarities. My slogan is like, hey, I'm getting involved in politics because I don't want the country I love become the country I left. When you talk about censorship, when you talk about weaponizing of government, when you talk about the identity politics, the radical left are using, divided us. And when you talk about this, almost like a Western cultural revolution to destroy the Western civilization, the traditional values, that we treasure, free speech and democracy and our constitutional republic, I feel like I have no option but to run for office, have a big mic in front of me, and to tell my stories and to warn people. We don't want to go down that path. Here's what happened to us already. We don't want history repeating itself.
And it seems like it's beginning to here in the United States, as terrifying as that idea is. Lily, you have an extraordinary story. It's something to hear. It's not hypothetical. It's real. This happened to you, and you see it starting to happen again here in the United States. You're running for Congress in New Hampshire. Where can people go to find more about you or to support you?
My website is lilytangwilliams.com, and there's a link called Lily for Congress. I have my issues there under blog. You can see all the past, 11 years ago, I published my first op-ed, and I got a testimony published and by National Review Online. So I have been consistent in this country, fight for free America for 12 years. And I'm not extreme. My opponent, somebody who is from deep state and moved here a few months ago and trying to use her commercial TV as a call me extreme. And she has millions of dollars from George Soros, Clinton's cash and moved here, pretend to be renter in Nashville a few months ago, used to work for Biden until recently. It's like, how can I be extreme? I love this country. And I'm the minority here who come out to defend American ideals. And I hope people will do their own research to say, if I embrace our Constitution, American ideals, if I want to fight for American dream and for you children's American dream, I'm that independent voice, honest, people's servant you should trust, and vote for me tomorrow. Not somebody talk the talk, repeat the DNC talking points, and elitists, and have no idea that the people are suffering economically and mentally in daily lives in my district. And she just repeat, same talking about blame on corporations, blame on private sectors, and the government is the cause of the high inflation we have now, including some housing issues. And because high interest, high mortgage rate, high cost of everything, people cannot buy, cannot rent a home. But she blame on private sector, and she offer bigger government solutions to pay for everything she promised, the free stuff to buy votes. That's why I feel passionate call her out to say, you actually don't understand. I mean, I'm not demonize people who are rich, who are born trust babies. I want to be capitalist too. I made everything out of myself by coming here with $100 in my pocket. Couldn't speak English. I made everything by myself with my husband, hard work. But she come in and just use that kind of talking points. I just had to call her out during the last debate. And she will not debate me on 3 college campuses. She only confirmed 2 debates. One is the NHPR with a form and was sitting down, and WMUR was the last debate, but only the one of the 2 debates. I had the chance to call her out, because I feel like it just came out so passionately. I'm advocating for the working class families and small business. And I have a veteran tell me, 74 years old, Vietnam veteran, is still working, cannot afford to pay bills to retire. How sad it is to see our people are suffering from a totally failure. Bidenomics is a part of it. and the open border crisis and draining our community resources and throw all the illegal immigrants and American citizens under the bus by the Democrat policies in the past 4 years. Why should the people give them another chance to win? So we hope people all vote for Republican tomorrow.
Well, I think I understand why she didn't want to debate you after seeing that clip of you calling her out in the debate. Listen, I wish I lived in New Hampshire. I don't, but if I did, I would vote for you. And I think a lot of people watching this show today are going to feel the same. You guys can go to lilytangwilliams.com to find out more information. Lily, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. And good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Make sure you join us tomorrow for Election Day right here on Blaze TV. You can go to blazeelection.com/Liz and use my discount code. You'll get $47 off your annual subscription. Guys, it's so important that you become subscribers. We don't know what's going to happen if Kamala Harris becomes president. We don't know how much we're going to be censored or silenced or canceled, kicked completely off of these platforms because we dare to report the truth, to talk about the issues that matter, to criticize government officials who are hurting us and our families and want to control us. Go to blazeelection.com/Liz so that we can stay connected no matter what the outcome of the election is tomorrow. And we'll see you tomorrow. You can go to any of our regular platforms. You can go to Blaze TV. You can go to YouTube. You can go to X. We're streaming our election coverage live. Let's hang out and unpack the results as they come in together. Thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.